What if the internet was invented in the 19th century? How would our world look today? Imagine if the internet wasn't a 20th century invention, but instead appeared in the late 1800s, an era of horse-drawn carriages, handwritten letters, and the first airplanes. This could completely change the course of history. How could the societies of that time adapt to such a technological explosion? What would life look like today if we had lived with the internet for over 100 years? Let's explore these surprising possibilities. But before we dive deeper, try to imagine what you could do if the internet had existed back then. How would you communicate, work, and learn if digital media like social networks, email, and websites had been around for so long? You might imagine massive, unquantifiable changes, or even some changes you never saw coming. So, where do we begin? Let's assume that in the mid-19th century, a brilliant scientist, similar to an Edison or Tesla of the time, invented the internet. But not as we know it today, with computers and complex global networks. Instead, this intranet might have emerged as a global network connected through electric wires, radio waves, or even methods of communication that we can't yet imagine. This was a time when the world was undergoing the Industrial Revolution, with significant advancements in technology, such as the telegraph, steam engines, and railroads. Yet, communication and the exchange of information were still limited to traditional forms, like postal letters or face-to-face meetings. If the internet had been invented in this context, it would have created an information revolution long before the 20th century. Back then, most people couldn't even fathom a world where global connections existed, where information could be shared and exchanged in an instant, just with a click of a button. A network like this would have changed everything from infrastructure, education, politics, to culture. The internet in the 19th century might have been limited to a select few groups, such as scientists, politicians, or creative minds, but its impact would have been undeniable. But the big question is, could such an invention have succeeded in an era where physical infrastructure and society were not yet ready for it? And if so, would it have led to the same rapid development we saw in the 20th century with the rise of computers and the modern internet? Let's explore the potential consequences of having the internet much earlier. Positive consequences. Rapid scientific and technological advancements. If the internet had existed in the 19th century, one of the greatest benefits would have been the acceleration of scientific and technological progress. Scientists would have been able to share their discoveries immediately, fostering a global research community right from the start. This would have significantly reduced the delays caused by distance and time. Major inventions like Bell's telephone or Edison's light bulb might have been developed and refined much faster. Research in fields such as medicine, engineering, and physics would have been propelled forward more quickly, speeding up technological innovations. Improved education. Had the internet been available early on, the education system would have evolved in profound ways. Students would no longer need to rely on bulky textbooks or attend class in person. Instead, they could learn online from experts, attend virtual lectures, and access millions of research papers from across the globe. Not only would this improve the quality of education, but it would also expand learning opportunities for those in rural areas where access to education could have been limited. Enhanced global communication and collaboration. The internet would have connected people around the world, allowing them to communicate more quickly and effectively. The world would have become a global village, where different countries and cultures could interact, exchange knowledge, and collaborate more easily. International cooperation on scientific projects, political movements, and cultural exchanges would have been much easier, opening up new opportunities for global progress. Negative consequences. Challenges with infrastructure development. One of the biggest challenges of having the internet in the 19th century would be the lack of infrastructure to support it. Technologies like fiber optics and wireless networks were far from being developed. The telecommunication systems of the time, such as telegraph lines and early telephone wires, wouldn't have been able to handle the vast data transmission required by the internet. Building and maintaining a global network would have been extremely difficult and costly. Social inequality. While the internet might have brought connectivity, not everyone would have had access to it. If the internet had been invented back then, only the wealthy or politically powerful could afford to use it. This would have created a massive digital divide between the rich and the poor, and between developed and developing countries. The majority of people, especially in rural or economically disadvantaged areas, would likely have been excluded from the technological benefits, exacerbating social inequality. Privacy and security concerns. Although the concept of privacy and data security wasn't as well understood in the 19th century, the existence of the internet would have posed significant risks in these areas. The ability to access vast amounts of personal and sensitive information could have led to early breaches of privacy, surveillance, and unauthorized data collection. These concerns would have likely risen long before we ever started thinking about them in modern times, affecting both individuals and governments. While the internet offers tremendous potential to drive progress, its early invention would have presented considerable challenges in infrastructure, equality, and security issues that continue to shape our world today. To help you better imagine the effects of the internet being invented in the 19th century, let's look at a story about a talented engineer named Samuel living in England during the late 1800s. Samuel was known throughout his community as a brilliant inventor, famous for creating unique mechanical tools and machines. Every time he came up with a new invention, he had to send letters to scientists in London to share his ideas and receive feedback. Often, this process took months, and each invention Samuel worked on faced significant delays due to distance and time. Imagine if Samuel could instantly send information about his new invention via the internet, sharing detailed blueprints, instructional videos, and even directly communicating with experts around the world. Within hours, scientists and engineers from Germany, America, or anywhere else could give him immediate feedback, allowing him to improve and refine his designs. This would drastically speed up the development of his ideas, making advancements like steam engines, electric lights, or even more complex mechanisms happen much sooner than they did in reality. But the impact wouldn't stop there. Samuel could also participate in online conferences about mechanical engineering, learn from leading experts in the field, and even collaborate with engineers from different countries to solve industrial problems. This would not only enhance his creativity, but also expand his network beyond his local community, something that would otherwise be impossible with the slow communication methods of the time. Samuel's story is just one example of how the internet could have revolutionized technology and knowledge sharing in the 19th century. If a global network like this had existed then, the technological advancements we saw in the 20th century could have happened much sooner, and our civilization would likely have progressed at an entirely different pace. To further support the idea that the internet could have been invented in the 19th century, let's explore some scientific and logical arguments that demonstrate why this idea might not have been as far-fetched as it seems. The telegraph and early communication technologies. In the mid-19th century, the telegraph was already a breakthrough invention, allowing messages to be transmitted over long distances using electrical signals. Samuel Morse's development of the telegraph in 1837 laid the groundwork for faster communication. If the internet had been invented at this time, it would have been a natural extension of the telegraph. using electrical lines to transmit more complex forms of data, such as images, videos, or even written text. The key difference would be the ability to transmit more varied forms of information in real time, rather than just simple messages. Available infrastructure. While we didn't have fiber optics or wireless networks in the 19th century, communication networks like the telegraph lines and early telephone systems were already being built. In fact, the 19th century saw the first telephone lines being installed as early as the 1870s. The global network required for the internet could have started with the existing infrastructure and gradually expanded. This would have been a slow process, but the existing communication technologies would have provided the foundation for a global data transmission network, just as the telephone lines enabled early communication. The concept of computing and logic. Even though we didn't have computers as we know them today, the 19th century was the time when fundamental ideas about computing were being developed. Charles Babbage's analytical engine, a mechanical device designed to perform complex calculations, was a precursor to modern computers. If Babbage's design had been further developed, or if similar devices had been created, it would have made sense to connect these machines via a network, essentially creating a primitive version of the internet. Moreover, the mathematical theories required to build the internet, such as algorithms and data transmission, were already being explored in the 19th century by mathematicians like George Boole and Ada Lovelace. The speed of innovation in the 19th century. The 19th century was a period of rapid technological advancement, driven by figures like James Clerk Maxwell, whose work on electromagnetic theory would later be foundational for wireless communication, Nikola Tesla, pioneering AC electricity, and Thomas Edison, who developed the first practical electric light bulb. The pace of technological progress was already accelerating during this time. Given this climate of innovation, it seems plausible that if the concept of the internet had been introduced, it could have spurred further rapid technological developments. The human drive for connectivity. Throughout history, humans have always sought faster and more efficient ways to communicate. The idea of connecting people through a vast network of information is not an entirely new one. It's just that the tools to make it happen were not yet available in the 19th century. The human desire for connection and the need for instant communication would have been a driving force behind the development of the internet, just as the development of the telegraph, the telephone, and radio were driven by similar needs. All of these factors suggest that the internet, while perhaps not in the form we know it today, could have been developed in the 19th century as a natural evolution of the technologies and ideas already in place. With the right vision, it is entirely possible that such a network of global communication could have been established much earlier than we ever imagined. When we imagine a world with the internet in the 19th century, we can also explore a variety of sub-scenarios and expanded situations that would have evolved in unexpected ways. Changes in warfare and global politics. Had the internet existed in the 19th century, wars and global politics would have played out very differently. Countries would no longer rely solely on slow, encrypted messages or face-to-face diplomacy. Critical information could be transmitted instantly, shifting how nations responded to threats or opportunities. A world war, for example, might have been delayed or even prevented, as real-time communication would have allowed countries to negotiate and de-escalate tensions faster. The spread of information could have dramatically altered the outcomes of conflicts and global alliances. The ability to coordinate military strategies or to mobilize support for a cause would have changed warfare forever. Cultural and artistic shifts in the digital age. While traditional forms of art, literature, and music would still be important, the rise of the internet would have created an entirely new era of digital art. artists from the 19th century would have been able to share their work instantly with a global audience, rather than only within their local communities or through occasional exhibitions. Digital platforms would have emerged for sharing and creating new forms of art, interactive, virtual, or even combining multimedia. The digital age would have brought about a new renaissance, but instead of physical canvases, the internet would have been the medium. This might have led to an earlier democratization of artistic expression, where anyone, regardless of social status, could share their creations with the world. The emergence of global social movements. One of the most significant impacts of the internet in the modern era has been its ability to unite people around common causes. Social movements like civil rights, environmental protection, and gender equality have flourished due to global connectivity. If the internet had been available in the 19th century, it could have sparked earlier, more widespread social movements. The ability to share ideas and organize protests or advocacy efforts in real time would have helped unite people in their fight for social justice across continents. Global political movements like abolitionism, suffrage, or even labor rights might have seen accelerated progress with the internet's reach. Economic and labor market transformation. The economy and the labor market would have undergone dramatic changes as well. The advent of online commerce, digital currencies, and global trade networks could have created new industries or radically altered existing ones. Instead of waiting for products to arrive by sea or rail, businesses could have done transactions and shipped products digitally. Online trade would have made it easier for small entrepreneurs and inventors to enter the global market, disrupting traditional industries that relied on physical stores and manual processes. This would have potentially accelerated the rise of global corporations and the end of some old manufacturing methods. At the same time, it might have displaced traditional jobs and forced workers to adapt to new forms of digital labor. Transportation and smart cities. The internet's early arrival would also affect the development of transportation systems. With real-time data exchange, cities could have developed smart infrastructure-optimized traffic patterns, real-time train schedules, and more efficient logistics well before the advent of modern computing. Early digital communication could have allowed for the first intelligent transportation systems, leading to faster travel and more efficient resource management. Additionally, the concept of smart cities could have emerged earlier, with cities optimizing services, waste management, and energy use through data connectivity, improving urban life in unprecedented ways. The rise of early digital surveillance and privacy concerns. With the internet in place, new concerns about privacy and surveillance would have surfaced much earlier. Governments and powerful entities might have used the internet to monitor communications and control the flow of information. This could have led to an earlier rise in concerns about data privacy and state control, much like we see today with debates over surveillance and digital rights. The question of how to protect individual privacy would have been as pressing as it is now, though the tools to address it might not have been developed yet. These expanded scenarios show just how far-reaching the impact of the internet would have been, not only in changing the way we live, but also in shaping the very foundations of modern society. From global politics and social movements to artistic expression, business, and urban planning. As we imagine a world where the internet was invented in the 19th century, some fascinating questions arise that challenge our perceptions of technology and society. Could a connected society have led to new forms of crisis or conflict? If information could be shared instantly, would the speed of communication prevent or escalate global conflicts? For example, would major wars like the World Wars have happened sooner or been avoided altogether, thanks to quicker diplomatic negotiations? Could global movements have been sparked by the rapid spread of information, perhaps even leading to more political uprisings or challenges to established powers? Would the rise of digital culture have hindered traditional art and craftsmanship? The internet in the 19th century would have revolutionized how people create and consume art. However, would this democratization of art have led to a loss of quality or depth? Would the internet have drowned out the craftsmanship and skill of traditional forms, leading to a society that values speed and novelty over deep, thoughtful creations? Would we have lost the subtlety and richness of 19th century masterpieces in favor of fast-paced, viral digital content? Can we truly preserve privacy and freedom in an interconnected world? With the invention of the internet so early, would we have been able to maintain privacy in a digital age? Would the government, corporations, or individuals have used these new technologies for surveillance and control from the beginning? Could we have struck the right balance between freedom of information and protecting citizens' privacy? Or would we have given up too much of our autonomy for the sake of connectivity? How would we handle the societal shifts caused by rapid technological advances? Would the internet's invention in the 19th century have created a society that's more inclusive and collaborative, or one more divided by access? Could rapid technological advances in communication have outpaced our ability to adapt, leading to social isolation, economic inequality, or even political polarization? Would we have been ready for such a dramatic shift? Or would the changes have been too much for society to absorb at once? Could the internet have sped up humanity's environmental destruction? The internet, for all its benefits, has undeniably accelerated industrialization and consumerism. Had it emerged in the 19th century, would it have pushed industries to consume more resources faster, accelerating environmental degradation? Or could it have provided a platform for environmental movements to unite and push for more sustainable practices? Could this early digital connectivity have been used for global environmental advocacy and reform? Or would it have only served to amplify the negative aspects of industrialization? These questions are not just hypothetical musings, but serve as important reflections on how the internet, as we know it today, shapes everything from politics and culture to economics and the environment. By considering these possibilities, we can better understand the consequences of technological advancements and how humanity must balance progress with responsibility. In exploring a world where the internet existed in the 19th century, we can see how it would fundamentally alter the course of history. From accelerating scientific discoveries to transforming education, communication, and global politics, the internet would have been a game changer for every aspect of life. Yet, with such profound advances, there would have been challenges, social inequality, security concerns, and potential losses of privacy and control. The lessons here are clear. Technology is a double-edged sword. While it can drive progress and innovation, it can also bring about unintended consequences if we're not careful. The internet, in its earliest form, would have raised questions about fairness, privacy, and the pace of societal change, questions that we still grapple with today. Now, the ultimate question remains: if you lived in a world like this, with the internet available from the 19th century, how would you use this new power? Would you embrace it to drive positive change? Or would you see it as a force that needs to be controlled? The answers to these questions lie not in the past, but in our present, as we continue to shape the future of technology and its impact on society.